when we first started out, there really was nobody that had a low-level presence policy, and all of a sudden, when we started working on this, the awareness increased, and there's a lot more happening behind this, than there was 4 years ago. There's a number of different approaches. So the United States has what they call an early food safety approval policy. So if they've had an approval of a food, they can, and something else comes in that has a similar protein, they'll just use the protein. So they'll say if it's the same protein, we've done a food safety assessment on this protein, and at a small level we can bring it in and push through. So it's not quite low-level presence, but it's similar. The Philippines is working on theirs right now. They've adopted the Codex LLP Annex, but now they're looking at how will that be implemented. Vietnam's an interesting one. This isn't low-level presence, but this is all approvals. So if 5 or more OECD countries have given an approval to an event, they will just grandfather it in. So that's quite a proactive approach. The Americas, and particularly the Mercosur South American countries, they're looking at what they call a mirror policy. They share the same waterways, so they really understand the importance of being able to approve products when another country has done that. So if one country's approved it, they're looking at a mirror policy, so to take that and quickly put through an approval process. And Colombia, we just heard, they're in the process of finalizing a labeling policy, but under that they have a piece for AP at 2%. So when I say AP, that includes low-level presence, but it's also adventitious presence. So it could include things that haven't received an approval at all. Again, recognizing that within the Mercosur countries, there's a very high level for products to come in into shipment. So, you know, the thing is, it's positive that there's so many policies out there. It's maybe negative because is there going to be consistency? And within the grain handling system, there's going to be confusion trying to keep up on everything. So now moving on to Canada. So as I said, the first part that Minister Ritz committed to was international engagement, but the second part was to create a low-level presence policy for Canada. Firstly, for their imports that could be coming into Canada, but also so that we could have a workable policy that when we go out and talk to other countries, that we can export this system. So it's really important we get it right, and we're able to go out and talk about it to others. They started by creating an interdepartmental ADM committee that had all the ADMs from all the departments, regulatory departments. And then underneath that, they were represented by a multi-departmental secretariat. And what this secretariat did was 4 things. They developed an issue paper, an assessment of countries and priorities, international engagement strategy, and then the low-level presence policy. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, where they worked very closely with the industry. Other ways too, but one of the main ways was through this Grains Roundtable Market Access Biotech Sub-Working Group. And I think the real power of that, as I said, was because we had the whole value chain there, the stakeholders and the government, and it's an area where we're able to freely discuss and sort of throw around options. And then what's happened from that is the government's taken it back, maybe made some changes, come back to us, discussed it again, and so I think that way we've been able to develop something that works. We had the first consultation that I hope most of you are aware of last year in September through November. They put out 180 invitations, so it wasn't totally open, and they received written and in-person feedback. So from that, they took that and now they've developed their second policy. So this came out in November. It's online right now. It's open until January 19th is the deadline for comments. They have both a policy and an implementation framework that is on there. There are some pieces still missing that they're working on, I'll get to. It's a full public consultation, so it's on the Agriculture and Agri-Food website, open for anybody who wants to respond to it, and I certainly encourage everybody to respond to it. They did some targeted focus groups. They had a multi-sectoral one last Monday in Ottawa. They had a grain-specific one in Winnipeg last Tuesday. They had the food processing one last Friday, and they're having the organic one today. So they'll get feedback that way. The other thing too is they've also made it open for international consultation through the Sanitary and Phytosanitary Committee under the WTO. So countries around the world can read the policy and provide Canada with comments as well. So it's a fairly fulsome discussion.